Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are going to dismantle one of the most persistent dogmas in the history of medicine. For decades, if you opened a textbook on human biology, you would see a very clear separation of powers. In Chapter 1, you had the brain, the central command center, shielded by the fortress of the blood-brain barrier, analyzing data and sending motor commands. In Chapter 10, you had the immune system, an autonomous army of white blood cells, marching to its own beat, fighting bacteria and viruses, largely independent of the brain's direct influence. We used to think the brain only found out you were sick when you developed a fever or felt tired, but that view is wrong. Recent scientific breakthroughs, culminating in a paradigm-shifting study published in May 2024, have revealed that the brain is not a passive observer of infection. It is the general on the battlefield. We now know there is a hardwired neural circuit, a literal switch hidden deep within the brainstem, that acts as a master thermostat for the immune system. This discovery, centered around the vagus nerve, opens the door to a new era of bioelectronic medicine, where we might treat autoimmune diseases and cytokine storms, not with pills, but with electricity. So let's dive deep into the mechanics of this vagal switch and understand how your body actually fights disease. To understand the magnitude of this discovery, we have to look at the history of what we call the inflammatory reflex. For most of the 20th century, immunology and neuroscience were treated as completely separate disciplines. The immune system was thought to rely solely on chemical signals called cytokines. Think of cytokines as messages in bottles floating through the bloodstream. If a macrophage, which is a type of immune cell, saw a bacterium, it would release these inflammatory chemicals to alert its neighbors. The assumption was that the brain had no direct control over this chaotic war in the blood. But this view began to crack in the late 1990s, thanks to the work of a neurosurgeon named Dr. Kevin Tracy. Tracy stumbled upon something accidental but revolutionary. He was working with rats, and he found that if he severed the vagus nerve, a minor infection would cause lethal inflammation. The immune system would go completely out of control. Conversely, if he stimulated the vagus nerve with electricity, it halted the production of inflammatory toxins. This was the first concrete evidence that the nervous system acted as a brake on immunity. It suggested that without the brain holding the leash, the immune system could be as dangerous as the disease itself. However, for over 20 years, a mystery remained. If the vagus nerve was the brake, where was the foot pressing it? How did the brain actually know when to apply the brake, and when to let the immune system run wild to kill a virus? The brainstem remained a black box until May 2024, when a team at Columbia University, led by Dr. Charles Zucker and Dr. Hao Jin, finally pried it open. Their study, published in the journal Nature, identified the specific neural machinery that allows the brain to monitor and control inflammation. This is where the science gets incredibly precise. The researchers needed to trigger an immune response to see how the brain reacted. They used a powerful bacterial toxin called lipopolysaccharide, or LPS. This toxin mimics a severe bacterial infection and usually causes the immune system to go into overdrive, a state often called a cytokine storm. Using advanced calcium imaging techniques, which allows scientists to watch neurons fire in real time, the team peered into the nodose ganglion. This is a cluster of sensory nerve cells that sit just outside the brainstem. What they saw was a flurry of electrical activity. The body was screaming infection, and the vagus nerve was carrying that scream to the brain. But here is the true breakthrough: specificity. They discovered that the vagus nerve wasn't just sending a generic signal of pain or sickness. It possessed two distinct populations of sensory neurons, acting like separate telephone lines. The first line, identified by the genetic marker CALCA, is the pro-inflammatory line. These neurons specifically detect pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-1 beta. When these neurons fire, they tell the brain that the battle is raging and the body needs heat. Then there is the second line, identified by the marker TRA1. This is the anti-inflammatory line. These neurons detect anti-inflammatory signals. They convey the message that the threat is neutralizing and it is time to cool things down. These two distinct signals do not just vanish into the brain. They converge on a tiny, evolutionarily ancient region in the brainstem called the caudal nucleus of the solitary tract, or CNST. This brings us to the most critical part of the mechanism: the control room. The CNST is the unsung hero of human survival. We have known for a long time that it regulates basic functions like heart rate and breathing. Now we know it is also the situation room for your immune system. The Zucker study revealed that the CNST acts as a biological rheostat, essentially a dimmer switch. It does not just flip inflammation on or off, it fine-tunes it. When an infection strikes, the pro-inflammatory line lights up the CNST. The brain processes this threat and initially allows, or even encourages, inflammation to recruit immune cells to the site of injury. But, and this is crucial, as the infection is cleared, the body produces anti-inflammatory molecules. The TRA1 neurons sense this shift and update the CNST. The brain then sends a powerful command back down the vagus nerve to suppress the immune response, preventing the friendly fire that damages tissues. This is a Goldilocks regulation system. Not too hot, not too cold. To prove this circuit was indeed the master controller, the researchers performed a series of elegant manipulations. When they genetically silenced these brainstem neurons in mice, the animals lost control. Even a minor infection caused a catastrophic, runaway inflammatory response. The brake was cut, and the immune system drove the body off a cliff. Conversely, when they artificially activated the anti-inflammatory circuit, they could halt inflammation in its tracks, reducing pro-inflammatory chemicals by over 70%. This proved definitively that the brain is not a bystander. It is the active regulator preventing us from dying of our own immune response every time we get a cold. Now that we understand the sensor in the control room, we need to visualize the output. How does the brain actually talk to a white blood cell? We need to look at the anatomy of this vagal superhighway. The vagus nerve, or cranial nerve 10, is the longest cranial nerve, wandering from the brainstem down through the neck, thorax, and abdomen. The process begins with the afferent arc, or sensing. Thousands of sensory fibers in your lungs, gut, and liver act as spies. They possess receptors for cytokines, effectively tasting the immune system's text messages. When a macrophage in your gut explodes a bacteria, it releases a cloud of cytokines. The vagal endings detect this and send an electrical impulse up to the CNST. Then comes the integration center, or thinking phase. The CNST receives this data and integrates it with other information. Are we stressed? Are we hungry? Is there a fever? It then makes a decision. More inflammation needed, or shut it down. If the decision is to shut it down, we enter the efferent arc, or acting phase. The signal travels from the CNST to the dorsal motor nucleus. From there, a motor signal travels back down the vagus nerve. This is where the magic happens. The vagus nerve does not touch every immune cell directly. Instead, it connects to the splenic nerve. The spleen is the boot camp of the immune system, holding vast reserves of immune cells. When the vagus fires, the splenic nerve releases norepinephrine. This chemical tells a special type of T cell, known as the T choline cell, to release acetylcholine. Acetylcholine then docks onto macrophages via a specific receptor called the alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. This is the literal off switch on the cell. It stops the macrophage from producing inflammatory toxins instantly. This complex relay race, from brain to vagus to spleen to T cell to macrophage, is how a thought or a neural signal translates into biological immunity. The identification of this specific brainstem circuit is not just an academic triumph, it is the blueprint for a medical revolution known as bioelectronic medicine. Consider our current treatments for autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, and lupus. We use steroids and biologics. These are blunt instruments. They suppress the immune system globally. They turn off the entire army, leaving patients vulnerable to infections and cancer. The vagal switch offers a sniper's precision. We are already seeing the rise of implantable vagus nerve stimulators. We use VNS for epilepsy and depression, but now companies are trialing miniature implants for rheumatoid arthritis. These devices are the size of a vitamin pill, implanted on the vagus nerve in the neck. By delivering a specific electrical frequency, they hack the efferent arc, tricking the spleen into releasing acetylcholine and calming the joint inflammation without the side effects of systemic drugs. Furthermore, this could be the answer to ending the cytokine storm. In conditions like sepsis or severe viral pneumonia, the cause of death is often the body's overreaction. The Zucker study suggests that this happens because the brainstem's thermostat is broken or overwhelmed. Imagine a future device that can reset this thermostat, artificially activating the anti-inflammatory neurons to save a patient in the ICU. Perhaps most profound is what this means for conditions often dismissed as psychosomatic. For years, patients with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, or long COVID have been told their symptoms are in their head. This research proves that immune dysregulation is literally in the head, specifically in the brainstem. It validates the biological basis of these conditions. If the neural calibration of the immune system is slightly off, a person could feel perpetually sick with brain fog and fatigue because their brain is reading a false pro-inflammatory signal. This discovery redefines the human body as a fully integrated network. We are not a collection of organs, we are a conversation. The brain and the immune system are in constant dialogue, whispering back and forth along the vagus nerve. It also provides a hard science foundation for why stress management matters. Chronic stress keeps the sympathetic nervous system high and the vagal tone low. If the vagal tone is low, the brake on the immune system is loose, potentially leading to the chronic low-grade inflammation that drives aging, heart disease, and metabolic disorders. As we move forward, we will likely see a new class of neuromodulating drugs designed not to kill bacteria, but to talk to the brainstem. We may see wearable devices that tune our immune systems like we tune a radio. The brain, it turns out, is the ultimate healer. We just finally found the switch. Thanks for listening to this deep dive on G Fun Facts Online.